Our masterly, compassionate and thoughtful Chancellor of the Exchequer has felt the pain of the British people and decided to abandon his plans to raise the tax on fuel this summer. Either that or we're looking at the budget omnishambles chapter 6 or 7. Last week, the fuel duty rise was essential. Today, it was unnecessary. A minister had said it would cost £1.5 billion to scrap the rise. Today, the Treasury said it would cost only about £500 million. Either the government is playing politics with the national economy, or the economy is in such an appallingly chaotic state that it justifies panic reactions like this. Our economics editor Paul Mason is here.
Well, it is a good question, Jeremy, whether or not this is a part of a master plan to save the UK economy from doom, or whether it's just something they thought up this morning. Because we're told the Cabinet met this morning and didn't discuss any changes to the fuel duty rise. And then at 12:30, Conservative MPs were sent something called a lines to take. This is what MPs get sent from all parties to tell them what to say. And what they were told to say was that Labour's demand for a freeze, Labour's calls are, quotes, hypocrisy of the worst kind. And then it came to pass that the government indeed enacted a freeze on this duty, and it, as you say, it will cost, they say, £550 billion to do that. And unusually, this is not something that is then balanced by an immediate change in government spending or taxation elsewhere. It's something we actually don't know how it's going to be paid for. It is, if we were in an election, we'd be hearing people accuse the government of an uncosted tax move. So it's all to play for, and we might find out what is this situation soon. But you know, these U-turns are coming thick and fast.
To those waiting with bated breath for that favourite media catchphrase, the U-turn, I have only one thing to say. U-turn if you want to.
Actually, George Osborne is for turning. Since the budget, he's U-turned on the pasty tax, the caravan tax, the charities tax, and today it was a planned tax on petrol, fuel duty.
I can tell people that we will now stop any rise in fuel duty this August and freeze it for the rest of the year. This means that fuel duty will be 10 pence a litre lower than planned by the last Labour government.
The move came as Labour, the SNP and Plaid Cymru were ready to force a vote on the planned increase. It left the Shadow Chancellor, not for the first time, performing the political equivalent of a victory roll.
We've now had U-turns on pasties, churches, charities, caravans, skips, and today a U-turn on fuel, which we welcome.
Though today's move follows a campaign by the Sun newspaper and by Tory backbenchers, there's more to this than populism. Last week, the government pumped £80 billion into the banking system, and there could be another £50 billion of money printing on the way. Basically, it looks like there's a stimulus, and this bit definitely is fiscal. And the reason for that is clear. The Governor of the Bank of England today ripped up a forecast he'd made 6 weeks ago and went into his full doomsayer act.
We're in the middle of a deep crisis with enormous challenges to put our own banking system right and challenges from the rest of the world that they too are struggling with.
Sir Mervyn said he had no idea what's about to happen in the Eurozone, and that predicting a return to normality in Britain would be a stab in the dark.
When this crisis began, 2007, 2008, most people, including ourselves, did not believe that we would still be right in the thick of it, in the middle of it, 5 years later. And all the way through, I said to this committee, I don't think we're yet halfway through it. I've always said that, and I'm still saying it. That tells you an awful lot about how my estimate of how long this will take to recover from is expanding over time.
With the Eurozone in recession and a sense of crisis gripping Brussels and Berlin, there's a danger of a nightmare scenario where our major export market collapses, growth slows here, and the much vaunted deficit reduction plan goes off course. Already, the tax take this year has been lower than expected and the deficit higher.
Right now, George Osborne's credibility is a very precious commodity. Literally billions upon billions of pounds are riding on the fact that we've got a Chancellor who says what he means and means what he says. It doesn't help one little bit for him to keep making U-turn after U-turn after U-turn on this budget. But U-turns don't seem to stop. We've had months of them now. And ultimately, this will undermine George Osborne's credibility.
In money terms, today's U-turn is bigger than all the previous ones put together. It'll cost £550 million and will be made up by unscheduled cuts to departmental spending. Health, education, who knows, because it won't be announced until November. The danger for George Osborne is not primarily that he looks weak or indecisive, because on the big issue, the deficit, he's sticking to Plan A. It's just that when you launch, then cancel tax increases at the rate of about one a week, you can begin to look incompetent.
This is followership rather than leadership. They basically come up with a plan, and if people don't like it, they come up with another one. Now, you can argue this is a great modern way of governing with opinion pool-enabled decision-making, or you can say that this looks indecisive and that this undermines George Osborne's own judgment. If he says that he's going to do something, there's a lot of money now riding on the fact that he'll do it.
Meanwhile, drivers, pasty eaters, caravan owners and chuggers unite. Right now it feels like every day is budget day.
Well, Chloe Smith, the Treasury Minister, is here with us. When were you told of this change of plan?
Well, as a Minister in the Treasury and indeed dealing with fuel matters, this has been under consideration for some time.
When was the decision taken?
As I say, it's been under consideration for some time. The Chancellor and the Prime Minister
yes, of course. So
take these decisions between them.
OK, so when were you told then?
I've been involved in this for some time, and
but you didn't take the decision, obviously. You've just said the Chancellor and the Prime Minister.
Indeed.
So when were you told?
We had a collective discussion of that in due course, and although I can't, give you the sort of full gory details
did it happen
of political
today?
Processes, I can't sit here and tell
remember?
you the ins and the outs. No, it's not appropriate for me to tell you the ins and the outs.
Why isn't it appropriate? You're coming here to defend a change of policy, and you can't even tell me when you were told what the change of policy was.
Because as a Minister in the Treasury, I've been involved in the discussions for some time. As I've said to you, the Chancellor and the Prime Minister take those decisions. I'm not going to be able to give you a running commentary on exactly who said.
I'm not asking for a running commentary. I'm asking for a statement of facts about when you were told. You were told sometime today, clearly. Was it before lunch or after lunch?
I'm not going to give you a commentary on who says what and when. That's about how government
I just want to know when you were told. I'm not even going to ask you who told you, but when were you told what the change of policy was?
This has been under discussion for some weeks.
Right. And at some point during those several weeks, they communicated to you that there had been a decision to change the policy.
Indeed, and today in front of Parliament we revealed to Parliament, as is right and proper by the way, to Parliament, that we were planning to help households and businesses in this way.
Is it hard for you to defend a policy you don't agree with?
It's not that, I'm afraid, Jeremy. Nice question. I do agree with it. I think it is very important to help households and businesses.
You didn't in May.
Go on.
All right, in May you said it is not certain that cutting fuel duty would have a positive effect on families or businesses. So what's happened?
I think the point to be made out of that and out of what's then been said today is that it's important to do what you think you can to help households and businesses. In a world that we're facing, and I think your intro pulled some of these themes out, in the world that we're facing where things are very hard for households and businesses, you have to do what you can, and you have to do that in good faith so that they can get the help they need at these hard times.
But you said it wasn't certain that cutting fuel duty would have a positive effect on families or businesses. That was on the 23rd of May. Now, what's happened between the 23rd of May and today, which is what, the 25th of June?
Jeremy, I don't think many things are certain in this world. I think the point is, on that, for example,
there are a lot of uncertainties
here. Families or businesses could even save the money they kept from, less on fuel duty. There are lots of different ways that could pan out for families and businesses.
Why didn't the Transport Secretary know about it yesterday?
It's important that the government, excuse me, it's very important that the government acts on concerns it hears. And as I said about who, what, and when, the government will make its policy and, importantly, comes to Parliament with it.
Isn't the cost of petrol in people's cars a matter of legitimate interest to the Transport Secretary, who didn't know yesterday?
Of course it is. It's a matter of legitimate interest to households and businesses. But, of course, as you know, taxes for the Chancellor, and in this case the Chancellor and the Prime Minister took the decision.
OK, it's going to cost, you say now, about £550 million. In contrast with your figure on the 23rd of May, which was about £1.5 billion. What, you just get the sums wrong, did you?
No, they actually refer to two slightly different things. Right. The question being asked in May, I believe, was about a full cancellation. And of course, as you will be aware from today, we have been talking of deferring the August rise to January.
It's specifically about the August increase, actually, the 1.5 billion that you referred to, and now you say it's 550 million pounds. Can you tell us from which departments that gap is going to be made up?
Well, as we've said today, it will be made up from, it will be drawn from, and around 500 million is the correct figure because we're talking about a deferral. Right. The figure will be drawn from underspends in departmental budgets.
Yes. Where?
Well, there are a number of those available. We know, for example, this year that if you look at the public sector data released only today, we know that underspends are going. We know that the rate of spending is less than the OBR was forecast. Those figures are there today.
Where?
We know also that last year there were 4 billion of those, so they are available.
Which departments is it going to come from?
They fall across and in different ways, and that figure will progress, if you like, through the course of the year.
Just name me a few departments.
No, I won't do that because we'll be giving you the full details in the autumn statement.
Are you waiting to be told that as well?
No, because...
You know, do you? You know which departments have underspent? It
is not possible to give you a full breakdown at this point because the figure is evolving somewhat. As per the data today, the data is available monthly in that particular instance.
We are clear that what you're looking for now is 500 odd million pounds. You say that various government departments are underspending, although you are unable to tell us which ones. Presumably you do know but are choosing not to tell us. Is that correct?
It's an aggregate figure. If you look at the data today, it's an aggregate figure.
Fine, you're choosing not to tell us which government departments have underspent.
It's an aggregate figure, and I think that's what's important here. The figure says there is enough underspend there to fund a policy like this. And what's really important is when we see that kind of funding available, we want to spend it for the good of households and businesses.
And can you just confirm to us that the number one priority of your government is reducing the deficit?
It is indeed, and the fact, if I may...
That's the number one priority.
The fact of using underspends for this means that our plan is absolutely intact, and that is rightly what we seek to use for the credibility
is this some
of our
sort of
fiscal
joke?
plan.
I mean, how can you possibly have as a number one priority cutting the deficit when you choose to spend and underspend in funding a tax cut or failure to implement a tax rise which was scheduled?
The plan overall has not changed. The plan overall remains those departmental budgets as they were laid out, and those have not changed. We're looking to use the underspends, however, in a way that is really valued by households and businesses, and I think anyone listening tonight who drives a car does know that.
We learned today that government borrowing increased by, was it £3 billion in May?
Would you like me to answer that or wait to the end of your sentence?
No, £3 billion is about forecast, wasn't it?
For reasons which are interesting in themselves.
I'm just wondering why you didn't, use this money to do something like paying that down.
Well, the figures on the other side of that public sector data released today are quite interesting in themselves. They do relate to rather one-off factors, specifically in terms of when some payments were made between May and June. That is of interest perhaps in a different conversation. But the fact is here, we are sticking to the overall plan and taking the opportunities we have to help households and businesses.
Do you ever wake up in the morning and think, my God, what am I going to be told today?
I wake up in the morning and know actually that some of my constituents will really value not having to pay that little bit more on fuel prices come August because the cost of living is pretty tight at the moment, and everybody does know that. I do think this move today is valuable. It's not just a Westminster Village story, Jeremy, it's real money in real people's pockets.
Oh, we all understand that.
Good.
You ever think you're incompetent?
I think it's valuable to help real people in this way, and I do think that is valued by people who drive.
OK, Chloe Smith, thank you.